up this weekend to kick off the main card of UFC 285. We have the Penn State legend, the three-time Division I All-American, the Dan Hodge Trophy winner as the 2019 Best Collegiate Wrestler in all of America, the 2020 Olympic hopeful, Bo Nickal, and he's going to be taking on the Nightwolf. Jamie Pickett. And for Jamie Pickett, he's trained at a Port City Sports Performance for a very long time, training at Gym O Tribe. And you want to see a guy training at that gym for a matchup like this with guys like Joe Selecki, beat Carl Deaton last weekend, with John Salter, the coach at that gym. Man, that guy's going to grind on you and submit you. And with Chris Weidman, the All-American. So maybe just a nickname alone, that'll help out Jamie Pickett. But for Pickett, he's a guy that's in an odd spot, right, career-wise. 1-2 on Dana White's Contender Series. He lost the first two fights. He gets the win over Jonathan Patti. That crazy blitz across the cage, throws like 30 unanswered punches, gets the win. In the UFC alone, Jamie Pickett, not a positive record. So he's 2-4 in the UFC, not the greatest, and he's going to be taking on one of the biggest hype jobs, and it's deserved. It's deserved. In Bo Nickal. And for Bo Nickal, you look at him, I talk about his wrestling. He was the guy that Masvidal brought in to wrestle with for Kamaru Usman. But Masvidal's not Kamaru Usman or Bo Nickal. And that's where MMA fans started to hear a little bit.
I would say that helped Jorge Masvidal's takedown defense, wouldn't you? Like, he did a pretty good job defending takedowns in this fight.
But you think of Bo Nickal as this wrestler. You look at him and he looks like a wrestler. He's got cauliflower ear. You watch his fights. So he had 2 amateur fights in 2021. He became a pro in 2022. And in the summer of 2022, won 3 fights. His debut was against a 36-year-old named John Nolan. And in that fight, John Nolan was like Betch Correia because he goes, let's go. And then he eats a left hand and he gets dropped and he gets finished. Bo Nickal goes out there, fights on Contender Series early, takes on Zach Barriault. Barriault, decent amateur record, decent pro record, misses weight for the fight. Bo Nickal runs across the cage, takes him down, flows between grappling positions, submits him. Then he goes out against CFFC champ Donovan Beard. They stand at distance a little bit. Bo goes out there, throws the head kick. He throws the body kick, and Bo loves to throw head kicks and body kicks. Bo's striking is very good. And if you don't know Bo knows tennis? Bo might know hockey, but does he? Best. Bo knows best. Bo Nickal, when he goes out there against Beard, catches a kick, throws a left hand, kind of drops Beard in one fell swoop. Out of that, scrambles, he ends up in a great position, and then he gets the submission. Bo Nickal has finished all 5 of these fights. He's looked amazing, and he's finished them very quickly. It's tough for Jamie Pickett because, again, Dennis Tululin dropped him twice in his last fight. Kyle Dawkins took him down multiple times en route to a finish.
We can just say it's tough for Jamie Pickett.
Jordan Wright kind of had that blitz and finished him. Now, Pickett was well-rounded against Laureano Staropoli, which is a win on his record. He was well-rounded against Joseph Holmes, a big guy, a really big guy for this division. But for Jamie Pickett, I'd say striking-wise, better with the volume, mixes it up, has a more varied attack in moments than a guy like Bo Nickal. And we haven't seen Nickal tested out of the first round, but Bo Nickal is very, very good at not just at one thing, at a lot of things.
Bo Nickal falls into the same category Damian Maia does. And what I always liked in Damian Maia was, I don't care who you bring in to emulate Damian Maia, there's a good chance they aren't as good as he is at jiu-jitsu. Who are you bringing in who is as good at wrestling as Bo Nickal?
The All-American Chris Weidman is who he brought in.
Even Chris Weidman doesn't have the collegiate accolades of a Bo Nickal. And that's saying quite a bit because Chris Weidman is a very credentialed collegiate wrestler. That just speaks to how good of a wrestler Bo Nickal was. Like, Bo Nickal's on a level with his wrestling that I just don't think a lot of people do understand. And to be...
So he's in the same category as somebody, and Tatiana Suarez collegiately didn't realize those accolades. And she wasn't in the Olympics because she had the cancer and the neck injury and all of that. Bo Nickal wasn't able to get the wins in the trials, and then he didn't end up being on the Olympic team and wasn't able to medal. But for Nickal, same thing happened to Suarez, okay? Well, I'm going to transition into MMA now, and just like Tatiana Suarez, he's very, very good at grappling in MMA.
And I know he doesn't have a lot of experience, but look at it in a similar vein that you do a guy like Alex Pereira. Like, he doesn't have a lot of MMA experience, but the experience in the martial art that he does have does translate over to MMA quite well. And that's the thing about collegiate wrestling. It does translate to MMA quite well. You know how I know that? Almost every champion in UFC history has had it in their back pocket at some point. Now, I know that's a massive generalization, but wrestling has been one of the dominant forces behind MMA ever since its inception, all the way back when Ken Shamrock was fighting Royce Gracie. I just think for Bo Nickal, getting some of that MMA experience is going to be important, like you mentioned. Getting tested against some of the high-level fighters is going to really matter, but Jamie Pickett has been taken down by guys who are not on the level of a grappler as someone like Bo Nickal. Now, I do think Nickal, with his striking style, might get him caught against guys like Robert Whittaker, but when I do think of guys who are going to test Bo Nickal, this is how you know a prospect's good, because I did this. I went through the top 15. Bo Nickal, I think, could have success against like 6 guys in the top 15.
But can Ronda Rousey box the men, Matt?
No, she cannot. I just think for Bo Nickal, for me to say a guy making his debut could possibly beat guys who are ranked just speaks to how high of a ceiling he does have. Now, I will be curious to see how good he looks once he does get clipped, once he does get dropped and face real adversity.
Straight shots
UFC.
will hurt Bo Nickal.
They will, but he has the ultimate answer to it. And it's, hey, if I get hurt, I can take you down, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So hopefully Jamie Pickett can make this a competitive fight and test some areas of Bo Nickal's game that we haven't seen up until this point. But I just don't think Pickett has exceptional enough punching power to get that one-punch knockout that, you sometimes talk about with a guy who's a big underdog. And he doesn't have Brian Ortega-esque submissions.
No, and Pickett is very well-rounded in the matchup, and he has to be commended for that. You've seen it in his wins. He's able to go out there, initiate the game plan, dominate his opponent, and just kind of pull through in that respect. But for me, going with Bo Nickal in the matchup might not be a surprise to a lot of people. Obviously, Pickett, he can offer up some challenges, but it is a very, very difficult fight for him in this one. And it's hard not to go with a guy like Nickal. From the tape and the sample size that we see now, again, all 5 of the wins, the 2 amateur, the 3 as a pro, they were done in the first round. Donovan Beard is really going to prop you up as an acting CFFC champ that he fought on Contender Series. He was able to go out there and dominate quite well. And Donovan Beard's a pretty good fighter. I know he's a little older. He's only 7-1, but still. Nickal's fought a good level of competition. I think he gets the win coming up this weekend, and it's going to be a fun fight that's on the main card of this pay-per-view. And if Bo Nickal loses, it's going to be one of the biggest upsets in all of MMA.
I hope you have Twitter, because it will be
and
on
that'll
fire.
Be fun, too, because, yeah, you don't want to be on the wrong end of that one.
No, but it's always exciting when you have a big mainstream prospect coming over to the UFC for the first time. That's what Bo Nickal is, because he is a big deal in the wrestling community. Like, he gets
Jordan
a lot
Burroughs
of
is going to watch this fight.
Oh, without a doubt. So for Bo Nickal, again, hopefully he does get tested in the matchup, have to show us a new wrinkle to his game that we haven't seen yet. I just think his big X factor, which of course the wrestling is just a little bit too dominant.
Some big fights left on this card, Matt. Mateusz Gamrot taking the fight on short notice against Jalen Turner. You also have, oh boy, Jeff Neal taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov. You're not going to want to miss it. Just keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.